Hello folks, this is a GT750 engine and I've been fiddling with this thing for about 5 years, believe it or not. I sent my crank out to Roy Gibson and he fixed me up. He actually took his time and I think it's within 1,000th run out. So here's Roy's card. It's roy@royrides.com. But something I noticed on the later style cranks, because I've got both an early engine and a later engine. Right in here, excuse me, on this seal there's a metal ring. And it has a extension on that fits into the groove of the case. On the earlier engines, there was a service bulletin for this. You'll see a C-clip style keeper, and that goes underneath the crankshaft if you don't have that seal. All new seals are going to come with that, but don't use both. That's a pitfall. And I almost fell into that trap. Alright, so back to the bearings. You'll see here there's a dot on top and there's a recess on the bottom. When you drop this crank in and you're lining up all these slots, give these a wiggle. Make sure they fall down into their keeper. I'll actually pull this out a little bit and show you what it looks like. So you'll rotate it and it'll click. And then go all the way down, make sure every bearing is in its spot. And then I'm just going to press down a little bit, make sure that that stuff's all locked in. Another thing is just to make sure that all your seals are in their grooves all the way down. The service bulletins talk about pushing the seals this way towards the bearings instead of the webs, because you don't want the web chewing up the seal. Well, just make sure that they're pushed towards the bearings all the way down, and we're in good shape. I'll take you through some other component layouts that I had to search through drawings forever because this engine was completely apart. The first one that's most easy, because we're right here, we've got a cracked water pump drive gear. I'm not too concerned about it, but I think they're all cracked. This bearing goes all the way to the end. I saw a guy in another video whose bearing had ridden down, but you'll see a half circle, and make sure your keeper ring is on this side, on the inside of this bearing, and we're going to be on the inside of this bearing. So we'll drop that in. The tachometer drive gear is removed from the case in order to install the case halves. If this gear were to break, your tack would stop working, so that would be to let you know that you're not going to be cooling in your tack. So just stop, get a new gear at that point. Also removed is the water pump drive, which is off of this end. That bolt in that hole, that's a locator for the cartridge that slides in there. So put that in with some Loctite while you got the case open. This little bypass line, make sure it's not cracked. Don't know what it does. Maybe if the water pump failed, it would let it indicate outside of the case instead of into the transmission. Alright, this is the clutch shaft, and it's an early one, and I'll describe the difference. Imagine your clutch basket is in this portion here, which earlier I mentioned the clutch basket needs to be removed to install the case halves. So we'll get to that after we install the case. There's going to be a nut, an aluminum folding washer, then there's a tapered washer. The chamfer goes outboard. Then this is the older style where it's a bushing for the clutch basket. So you've got a bushing inside, bronze with the outer keeper. On the newer engines, it's a roller bearing. And this is the later with the rollers. So we'll put that in there. So that goes like that. Then we've got another washer that's tapered with the chamfer inboard. So we're making a sandwich. We've got a roller bearing that's pressed on, a pressed on gear, a movable gear with the circlip on this side with pegs that engage this, Again, we got our shiny groove where the fork selector goes in. Teeth in, those engage like that. Let's see, then this gear is fixed. We've got a bearing with the groove on the outside. This groove's on the outside, by the way. And we've got another rubber plug. Here we go with output shaft. You'll have your sprocket on this end, nut, the bendable washer, this flange, there's a seal in there, and a spacer. This is what the seal rides on, so install your new seal there when you reinstall this. There's an O-ring behind this plate, as seen, a bearing, which is pressed on. Let's see, that gear has holes to engage these teeth. This gear slides over. There's a snap ring, a rotating gear with presses, teats to fit this groove, which slides over. Okay, these shiny spots here are where your shift forks are going to go, and those shift forks are the doubles on the back side of the case. This gear is fixed. That's the way it slides. Gear, then a bearing with the groove on the outside. We've got a rubber stopper plug here, and on the opposite side there's a seal pressed into here. Here's a Kickstart assembly. This keeper keeps the spring from contorting. That slot is going to go in this groove. This pin, after you assemble the engine halves, then you install the spring and keeper. Okay, so going back to what I was describing, that pin goes into the hole on the shaft. This keeper, the long arms go inboard. There's a spacer here with the hole inboard, the large hole inboard, and the small oil hole will be kind of on top when you install this in the shaft. So the oil hole should line up. That's how you'll know you have it right. If you put it on this way, oil hole doesn't line up. So this gear, teeth inboard, they engage this gear. Gear slides down. We've got saw teeth on this side pointing to the left of the engine. One thing about this Kickstart shaft, you'll see a little dot. So there's the oil hole and there's the dot. On the toothed gear we see a dot here and a dot there. Let's align those dots. Our teeth, that stays. There's a spring, a washer, and then another bearing. There is a slight difference on this one too. The hole's closer inboard. Okay, so that's going to be your locator pin. Also on the end, there's a little rubber plug. Make sure that is in there. I'm going to run through the clutch install. The cases will be together. We put on our tapered bearing, or tapered washer, chamfer in, and this is the later style. The basket will be fished on, and then we'll put our bearing in, and this is the later with the rollers. So we'll put that in there like so. Take our next tapered washer, put the chamfer out like that. Then our clutch basket, inner clutch basket goes on. It's on the splines like so. Then there'll be an aluminum washer, this, and then our nut. Torque that sucker down. Almost done here, just going to cover a few more things. This drive gear here has a washer on the top. I'm going to just plop that down in there. All your bearings have keepers in the case, and they're semicircular, so make sure they're in there. And if all this lines up, it's pretty self-explanatory. You'll see here and here And on the other drive, it's on this, is your fork selectors. The Kickstart bearings are also located. You'll see a hole here. Looks like the thinner side inboard. This can be a little tricky, and if you pull the cases or jostle this thing, it could pop loose. So just take your time and make sure that they drop in. When they drop in, you'll know for sure. Try to do one on camera here for you, but two hands. There. Probably was blocking it, but there you go. And this one too, same way. So having lined up those dots, now when this is forced, the spring would want to return this shaft. It's opening the gear here, and our oil hole is almost up dead center. Our spring pin is here. And on the very end of the shaft, you'll see a dot, which is an alignment for the Kickstarter shaft. It's almost 12 o'clock too. While I got both parts here, this is an early one-way clutch gear. You'll see it's got lightning holes in it. The later one is pressed in. It's designed a little different. I was wanting to use this because of the lightning holes, but it didn't feel as good. You know, right here. This one's pretty solid. This one wobbled quite a bit. They used a long roller bearing, and this appears to be the same year to year. The later style uses two roller bearings. It's like in half, and of course this gear looks a little different. I went with the one that was original to this year. It seems like it might be an improvement, not just a shortcut or a cheaper manufacturing process. But the one-way bearing works backwards, but not forwards. Set here, this is for the starter. It's like a gear reduction. You're going to have a shaft, which is in the case, that fixed gear. The larger gear goes back, a washer, and I've got this on here just to keep it. The gear selector shaft goes through the motor, engine. Here's how the spring should look. It's on either side of this pin, and then the pin on the case is going to be right here, hypothetically. That gives it a good return when you're off the pedal. Loctited these bolts in, and then the star, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teeth on the rear, 4 on the front. Should be about level in neutral. We're going to slide this back through. Hope that's clear. So this tooth will be here, and this tooth will be here. On the back side of this clutch drive, we have this rubber cap. We're going to put sealant on that bottom half, plop this in, put sealant on the top. Sealant's going all the way around on these flat flanges. A little dab there, around. Right here, the later case has a recess for the O-ring. That's where the water jacket goes lower. So we'll put a new O-ring there. That's all I can think to tell you. If you have any questions, put them down in the description. Maybe I can help you. I'm not going to take this apart again, hopefully, for a long time, but between diagrams or something, we could explain it or maybe help you out. Thanks for watching. Bye.